Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Beer Talk Live. I'm your host, Aaron Quinn. With me as always, but in a new location today is our good friend Matt Carr from Loveof.beer. Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. And this is the first time here on the podcast where we have somebody with us that I don't know coming into this. So this is pretty cool. I think we made it. We're big time now, right? There's a guy I don't know.
Yeah, right. And he owns a brewery.
Right. I see that by the things that you're standing in front of.
Yeah.
So Matt, why don't you introduce us to your handsome friend there?
Yeah, so this is Nate Wilds. Nate is one of the co-owners here at Flight Deck Brewing in Brunswick, Maine. We're on the former Navy base now called Brunswick Landing.
Yeah.
There's still an airport here. It is non-tower controlled airport. Bunch of really cool businesses out here of kind of varying differences, but these guys were kind of the first real consumer-focused organization.
One of the first,
yeah. And the first just microbrewery with a tasting room in Brunswick. Before we had a couple brew pubs, but nothing on the just microbrewery angle. So we'll get into some of that later. But Nate's does a bunch of stuff with Loveof.beer, does a bunch of stuff with the local chamber organizations, and works for another organization that we'll get into later as well. So
Nice.
we're stoked to have him.
Nate, how you doing, man? Welcome.
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I always like to talk about beer, and I actually did not have. I had a few excuses today where I specifically should not be drinking beer at.
Yeah.
And I did not have one where I should be drinking beer at. So, cheers to that.
Amen.
Cheers. Absolutely. And I got to say, if you've been listening to the podcast, you guys know now that I live up in Buffalo. So, Nate, you were about 5 years late on getting this brewery started when I lived in Brunswick. I always complained that we didn't have we had brew pubs like Matt said, but we didn't have a real brewery that was our town's brewery. So congratulations, man. I think that's huge for the area and doing it right there in the old Navy base. I think that's huge for the area. So congratulations on that, man.
That'll be a perfect lead into live and work in Maine when we talk about
Yes,
that.
right. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get into it. The other organization I work for, Live and Work in Maine, let's just say luring you back is what we're all about. So
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that. First, before we get into any of the news that broke over the last month since we were with you guys last here, what are you guys drinking tonight, Matt?
You having the same thing I am?
I am not.
Okay, go ahead.
I am drinking, you can't see it because it's in our new stainless steel container that we co-branded with the Brunswick Topsom Land Trust. We had a fundraiser this past weekend. And so I definitely bought myself one. I'm drinking our Right Stuff, WRIGHT, named after the Wright brothers. And the Right Stuff is a rye pale ale. So it's a nice smooth pale ale that's brewed with rye. So it's got a little bit of a bite to it at the end, fairly low ABV. It's a nice thirst-quenching beer for a conversation.
Yeah.
I love rye, so
Yeah.
that's one I'll definitely have to check out. I'm guessing Matt's going with an IPA. What are you?
Surprise. Yeah,
Earth shall shatter.
I'm drinking 44th Parallel, which is their IPA. I'll flash that nice little logo in there for you too.
Nice.
Easy drinking, real tasty. It's good. It's kind of my go-to when I'm here. They had a New England IPA pilot release last week that I missed by a hair.
For the 44th Barrel is our West Coast style IPA. We're starting to call it an American IPA because we got more funny looks when we call it a West Coast style, being in Maine. We call it a West Coast style because it's a more bitter IPA than most breweries in Maine are brewing.
Spicier.
These days. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, 10 or 15 years ago, you'd call it solid IPA.
American pale, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And today's world, when especially in a big tourist town like Brunswick, when we get folks coming in saying, I want an IPA, they're expecting a drink that tastes like an orange.
Mango juice.
Yeah. And this isn't that. And we will have one of those this summer, but this wasn't that. So we wanted to differentiate that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's awesome. You know, a person that hasn't been into your brewery yet, Matt and I talk about it all the time. I think it's good to have those styles that the tourists are looking for, but I appreciate when people have a variety of styles. I don't want to go to a place and see 10 of the same juicy IPAs. I don't love that stuff, but I like to see some more traditional stuff. Hearing that you're using rye, I love rye, so I love seeing that.
I imagine we'll get into this a little later, but we're also not in Portland, so we're 35 minutes up the coast. We're not far away, so it's an easy evening commute. But Portland is known for juicy IPAs.
Right.
Maine is known for juicy IPAs, but specifically Portland. And there's a number of breweries that brew exclusively that, and that's what they started with, and seemingly that's all they're going with.
Yeah.
We're in Brunswick, and Brunswick, yes, is a tourist community, but our bread and butter and what we really focus on is the local community here, and we'll get into why that mattered, I think. But the local community is not a conditioned juicy IPA crowd. There's a significant blue collar population here, as well as a significant population of people that just aren't used to drinking craft beer.
Right.
And so when they drink an IPA, they want an IPA as it was in the 90s, early 2000s, not as Bissell Brothers and others, thank goodness, reinvented it a little bit.
Yeah,
but we got to get into the nuances, the styles, to really understand what people like.
Right.
Absolutely. And, before we go too far into that, I think that area, I worked in the restaurant industry in the Freeport area for a while, so just north of Portland as well. And I think that Brunswick area, having grown up there, has a lot of Gritty's influence, a lot of shipyard influence.
Sure, yeah.
So, like you said, stuff of the 90s, those craft beer drinkers of the 90s.
Right.
I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those guys still, too.
Yeah.
My fridge is full of that, brown ales and stuff. So speaking of styles and beers here, a little quick stuff in the news. A couple breweries that I really am fond of, and maybe one that I'm I could live without, but Avery, a brewery that I love.
Flight deck right in front of me.
Yeah, right. I haven't even been there yet, and I'm already shitting on you guys. Avery phasing out beers. So Avery plans to phase out the Joe Pills, Raja Double Pale, and the Persic Saison, which is one of my favorite summertime beers. This one I'm really actually upset about.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do is grill up big, large chunks of steak in the summer and drink 2 or 3 of those while I'm grilling, because they are just beautiful peach Saisons, and they're busting it out. They're getting rid of it, shaking things up over at Avery. So
I missed this news. Did they provide a reasoning as to why?
They're just they say that consumer demand isn't there for a lot of the beers. Also, they just want to continue to shake up their lineup from time to time. They had an acquisition recently, a minority share to a larger company, so they are trying to push out things that make more sense to push out on a larger scale across the country. And these ones just got on the chopping block. Some rumors that they are going to bring them back at some point as limited releases. But these were pretty standard stuff, at least here. I don't know how much Avery you get in the stores.
We don't almost any. I don't know that it's ever been distributed up here.
Okay.
I've had it. Yeah, I don't know where it came from. But
Yeah.
we had it once.
Yeah.
It's pretty well distributed up here, so you see those in the stores every time you go in. Those
Sure.
are pretty standard, but they aren't going to be. I think they're phasing them out here this year, and so I don't think the Saison's even going to make it out this summer, which is pretty upsetting to me. But that's okay, because Bell's, one of my other favorite breweries, is they're getting rid of the Smitten, which I didn't love. It was like just a pretty generic wheat ale. Really light. It was okay, but they're releasing a sour, brand new. It's called Larry's Latest Sour, and it's replacing Smitten. The base for this beer is a dry hop kettle sour, similar to Oarsman Ale, which is a really good beer if you haven't tried that, featuring bold hops like Mosaic, Citra, Galaxy, and Eldorado, stuff that everybody's well aware of now. It's pretty saturated in the industry. So I'm hoping that comes my way, because we get a lot of Bells. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. I saw a picture actually of one of those mini kegs of the Hop Slam. That going to make it out here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we'll see what the trade is.
I don't know. It's code for
You better send a nice box, is what that's code
exactly.
for. Yeah.
That's right. I think they're pretty pricey. I haven't been yet. I'm kind of over Hop Slam. Myself, talk about bitter. Oh my god, you bite down on that stuff, man.
Oh yeah. It's I mean, I would probably let Ben Grant drink most of it, but
Yeah.
By the way, if anybody wonders why we're distracted, so we were facing the hallway. So we're in the middle of the building, basically. We're in an old shooting range. So we're in the middle of the building, and halfway down, so you have to walk in one end, and the tasting room is at the opposite end. So there are people walking by us all the time, and none of them realize that we are live on YouTube and online. Least of all, my father, who just walked by and now has leaned over the railing. So I think it's only fair that he
come on in,
make a guest appearance.
Absolutely.
Like the best dad he is. He's wearing his branded
Oh
shirt.
yeah, look at
AKA
that.
Christmas present.
Repping. Yeah.
Lean in.
Hey, Dad.
So you can't hear anything that's going on. So
Okay.
That's all right.
It's a family-friendly show. Just be aware.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sort
So
of.
my son,
Yeah.
Nate, gave me this shirt for Christmas, and it's a highly coveted, hard to come by shirt because there's only 2 of a kind.
Right.
Really?
So you generally have to be related to me to get one.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, you gotta know the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a nice chamois kind of classic.
It's perfect
Yeah.
for this kind of weather.
The value is equal to all that he spent raising me.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
it's an equal trade, right? Is that right?
Debt has been cleared.
Yeah. Okay. one more
It's
Christmas.
a down payment for what you
Yeah, that's
cost
right.
to raise.
Yeah. I'm sure he's got a nice tab at the bar. So
Yeah.
Yes, he
absolutely.
does indeed.
Yeah.
That's the great fun thing about Flight Deck is it's we pitch ourselves as family friendly, but before we pitch ourselves is that we walk the walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our family was not going to let us open a brewery if they weren't going to be active participants.
That's
so,
right.
For sure. Absolutely.
along for the ride.
Speaking of opening breweries, a large player in the game, not really a craft brewery anymore since they were purchased by one of the big boys, but Ballast Point, still in the craft beer section at any of your local beer store, still featured on the craft beer side of the menu at any of your restaurants. It's actually still, I think it's still big news for beer styles as a whole that they are opening a downtown Disney location in Anaheim, California. So while they do have the power of big beer behind them, I think this is a big breakthrough for beer styles and your regular consumers being able to go to a Disney location and get craft beer.
Sure.
I was at a Disney location in Hawaii a few weeks back, and you saw a couple craft beers. So I think Disney as a whole is starting to see that there is a market for that, and they were doing the local Hawaiian stuff. So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And I know that they're also trying to bring it into the cruise lines as well. So I think that's big for all craft beer over there. The more people you can touch, the more consumers you can touch. So
Sure.
what are your thoughts on Ballast Point expanding into the Disney realm?
I think it's great because I think someone like Disney has to plan for volume, right? Like a tiny location is not going to be able to keep up with the demand that they're going to require. So somebody like a Ballast Point that was a craft brewer at one point kind of gets the scene and represents at least the style that we're all into. Bringing that to the table as a competitor to Budweiser and Coors and all that stuff, I think is great. Why not?
And also, and Disney's not in the business of losing money, right? Like they make calculated decisions. I've heard stories of people that work for Disney where, like, in the kitchens, they sweep up the remnants of the evening and weigh them on a scale. And if it's over a certain amount of weight, people start getting in trouble. Like, they're not in the business of losing money, right? It's a big time for a profit business.
Sure. Goodness.
So to me, that shows that the data suggests that craft beer is where the money's at for businesses like this. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Demand is changing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how, from in a business context of, do what you do and do it really well.
Yeah.
Be who you are.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if Disney embraces the Ballast Point brand heritage.
Yeah.
Or if Ballast Point brand heritage was bought and leveraged for something else.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
That's a lot of the pushback that you see in the buyouts of quote unquote craft beer.
Yeah.
From larger companies, Anheuser-Busch being the elephant in the room.
Sure.
Are they buying them for the past brand heritage? Because certainly Anheuser-Busch has enough capacity. They could reverse engineer any one recipe, right?
Yeah.
That's not a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
What they're buying is the reputation, and they're buying, in some instances, the talent, but usually it's just the brand heritage.
Brand equity,
and what people see in that.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see how long that lasts. Because when I first saw that news about Ballast Point going into Disney, put aside who owns them, that's the brand synergy didn't immediately strike me.
Yeah, no, I agree totally.
And it was odd that they highlighted the Ballast Point brand specifically versus, to your point, about craft beer coming into Disney, right? If I were Disney, to me, I would have. It seems more like Disney to say, instead of Ballast Point, it's all about craft beer,
right?
And Ballast Point is the afterthought because. At the end of the day, some people love Ballast Point, but Ballast Point's going to come and go. Any brand is going to come and go.
Of course.
Disney being one of the few exceptions. So rather than tie their brand to Ballast Point, it's interesting they're putting all their eggs in that one brand basket.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I do think, as far as the guys that go over to the big beer, I think they've done a good job. They continue to put out the different stout flavors that they do. So they're still operating creatively under that brand. I know here, at least, there's still a number of tap takeovers. So they're still sticking to that craft beer tap takeover mentality. It's not just, you don't just see it in every beer menu. You're seeing one or two here and there. So I think they've done a decent job of maintaining kind of the brand identity that they had prior to the purchase.
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting here because it showed up in distribution all of a sudden, which we hadn't had consistent distribution on here. And then they almost immediately got bought. So
that's right. That happened sort of in the same 2 months.
Very quickly, yeah. So, I mean, I think people were excited. To me, I think they kind of beat the flavored sculpin to death a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was cool to see it out here. I think I was up in Bar Harbor, actually, and saw Ballast Point. I'm like, what is this doing here? Yeah. I didn't know these guys were here. So, yeah, I think, I think anytime any big chain like that is willing to recognize where the demand is, it's better for me. I want to go on vacation and drink something I like.
Absolutely.
I know. Yeah.
It's all about Matt.
Yeah, that's
I want
right.
to drink beer
All the time.
I want to go on vacation.
Who brought this?
I hear you though, man. Because I went to Disney down in Florida. I think it was 3-4 years ago now. I think it might have been 3 years ago, and there was not options. They had like at Epcot, they have the German beer garden. There's some random German beer there that is partnered with Disney, but there wasn't craft beer. Like I couldn't go get a nice juicy hazy IPA for Matt and take a picture and make him jealous. So if the more that happens, where guys like myself can enjoy a beer in that environment and not be subject to just drinking whatever light brand is on tap, the better.
Yeah, amen.
So go ahead.
Oh, is it?
Is your name Maverick?
Nice.
Really? That's your legal name?
To fill you guys in, there's a tank behind us.
That's awesome.
Called Maverick, and a guy just walked in who said, "My name is Maverick."
We are live on YouTube and
it's going to be a little different than our typical podcast, guys.
No, you should keep my driver's license.
So lean in, Maverick. So you can't hear what's going on, but trust us,
what's going on?
It's a big wide world.
So, like, how many people are watching?
I'm not sure right now. Yeah. We're live on YouTube, though.
Just take our word for it.
Yeah.
So, can we see this? Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
So, we have 2 bright tanks. We have a 7-barrel system, 2 bright tanks, and we named the 2 bright tanks Maverick and Goose after Top Gun.
We are in a Navy.
That's a pretty awesome.
That is the first real person I've met named Maverick.
Yes. I've never met another Maverick.
I would like to shake your hand.
I've
never met a real Maverick.
That's perfect.
I walked and I seen that. I was like, that's pretty fun.
Good.
We knew you were coming and went out of our way.
Yeah, that's
so we
right.
call Flight Deck Customer Service. It's Flight Deck Customer Service.
This is Flight Deck.
We name all our tanks after our customers.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
So let's talk about Flight Deck a little bit here. Let's get into the,
Yeah, we haven't done that at all yet.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about you a little bit here. So this is a multiple part question. So kind of hang with me here. And if I think you're reading it along with us, just in case you need
cheat
to
sheet in front of me.
go back to it. So I want to know, how did you decide to start a brewery? What is the process like from a personal angle, compliance angle, funding angle? Like Matt had mentioned before, you guys are the first true brewery in the town of Brunswick. There's brew pubs there. So this was a new thing, a new venture that you guys went into. And also that space that you went into is a unique space in that it was an old federal government Navy base turned into a commercial zone where primarily it's been production-based business, not commercial-based business. So, or commerce-based business. So if you can get into that a little bit and kind of fill us in on, how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, sure. So I'll take it in two segments here. The first from sort of why start a brewery in the first place. Myself and my business partner Jared, who's behind the bar right now, and he will make a guest appearance later. I will ensure it. He and I are yin and yang, sort of complementary business partners. One, I'm the extrovert business marketing guy. He's the introverted mad scientist brewer, and he and I met a couple years ago now. We met in April, and at the time I was living in Harpswell, which is an island community just south of here in Brunswick. Brunswick, Maine is a college town. Bowdoin College is based here, called a Little Ivy, I think is what they call it.
Yeah. Mini Ivy.
Mini Ivy or something.
Yeah.
Brunswick is one of the largest greater Brunswick is one of the largest metropolitan areas in the state. It's outside of Portland. It's one of the best, but also the most clear downtown identity.
Yeah.
So there's a great Main Street. There's a redeveloped mill in which Patrick's office is based, and Loveof.beer is based. There's a lot happening, and there's a lot of people, and there's a really strong sense of community. And so when we moved into that greater community, my fiance Jamie and I were surprised to find that there was not a great resource available for meeting people. So there's an incredible foodie scene. There's multiple James Beard nominees that have restaurants in town.
Yeah.
An unbelievable restaurant scene. But you don't go to a nice sit-down restaurant to meet folks when you move into town.
Right.
Harpswell is the oldest town in the state, I think, or it was at the time.
Yeah.
You know, Jamie and I were in our late 20s at the time, and single-handedly lowered the average age significantly. So there was a challenge, and we say that jokingly, but the truth is that the different social scenes, it makes it difficult to meet folks and to really establish a foothold. So selfishly, we love the quality of life here. We love the ability to live on an island in Maine with the lowest property tax rate in the state and commute to Portland, the largest metropolitan area in the state, with an international jet port, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We loved that quality of life. But to establish a family, we really wanted a local scene, and that was really important, is to have a good community that you can come home to. And so that frustration led us to Jamie started. I didn't. I supported her in a lot of taste testing. She started New Beat Market, a restaurant here on Brunswick Landing, as that was really the first consumer-facing business. And fast forward to a frustration of they had a great customer base of folks that knew the landing, but they really struggled to reach people that didn't know that the landing was open to the public. Oddly enough, there are a lot of people that just were not aware the military had left, despite the base being bracked in 2005, formally closed in 2011. This is 2015 now, 2016, 2016. So there were still people living under big rocks that just had no idea, because formerly when you came out to the landing, the first thing you'd see is a few very muscly dudes with really big guns.
Yeah.
That, did not want you to come on.
That we spent our whole life seeing, like, don't even play around there.
That's there's nothing to joke about. And there wasn't anything to joke about. It's an active military base.
Absolutely.
And now it's the opposite. In fact, not only do we want people to come out, we need people to come out here for the sake of the community. So to lure people out, I started asking around at some of the breweries because the other frustration was a lack of, I think somebody just lost Domino's.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
They went everywhere. So moving to Harpswell, there was no microbrewery in town. There was none of that scene that we got accustomed to in Portland. That's where we lived previous to this. And there was really a big need, selfishly, but also we could sense from other people we were starting to meet, of a place to gather and a place to drink, but not exclusively to drink. And that was something that neither Jamie and I are bar goers. We don't go out for alcohol. We wanted to enjoy the social scene and have a nice beer, not to get drunk, but to enjoy the products. And so the brewery model fit, but I couldn't find a brewery in the state that was willing to move here. So coincidentally, this is like, in case you ever question whether you were meant to do something, I don't know if anything more clear. In the same week, I hit a wall, not being able to find a brewery that was willing to expand or relocate to the landing. I met Jared, who was my business partner, half and half. He's, he's the secret sauce here. He's got the brewing experience. He brewed previously at Shipyard, so he has large commercial brewing experience. And he's been home brewing. By the way, I found this out on live television. He was home brewing since the age of 16. It's fine as a nice anecdote. It gave me a little bit of a heart attack to learn that while he was being interviewed on television, but. So
totally
he has a lot
legal.
Totally, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, it is. It's totally legal.
And some people would kind of shove other things in the closet when their parents, wouldn't find it. He was shoving like brewing equipment in his closet, so his parents
beer mags instead of
exactly, yeah. Instead of plants, it was fermenters.
Yeah.
So he has a world of experience and is really an incredible a scientist and a creative mind when it comes to beer. And he was interested in and really sort of gunning to do his own thing. And so we teamed up and just said, hey, wouldn't this be a cool exercise to come up with a business plan? And oh, by the way, there's got to be a very clear reason why no one has done this in Brunswick. Because there's an obvious market, there's an obvious need. We're not very smart when it comes to this thing. Clearly someone else has thought of this, and clearly there's an obvious reason why this is impossible. So we started forming a business plan, and 2 days later, this building came up for available, and our landlord had sort of been, at the time, teeter-tottering whether to purchase the lot. We gave him a pitch as to what this could be. He said, I think that's a little bit ridiculous, but if you want to take a risk, I'll take a risk. So he said, sure, what the heck, we'll do it. And so said, all right, well, give us some time to see if we can raise some money. because neither of us had any money. We're in our 20s, and I still have student debt.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, we found some folks, some family acquaintances that were willing to put a little bit of money up, not as much as we needed, but enough to get us to take it seriously. And I'll get into that in a second when it comes to the compliance and fundraising. But it was enough to say, oh my gosh, somebody believes in this to put some of their hard-earned dollars to work and trust us with this.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that's a big responsibility.
Right.
I guess we better come up with a business plan.
Yeah.
And so we came up with a business plan that was really rooted in the basics of we know there's a need to gather. So if there are a few hundred people in Greater Brunswick within 30 miles, I mean, Greater Brunswick is a huge area.
Right.
If there are hundreds of people, never mind thousands, that would gather, we can pay our bills and we can make this work a few days a week. And so we put together that business model. And so we bought the biggest tanks we could afford to buy, which were 7 barrels. We originally, our business model based on production was based on a 1-barrel production system, which we fast forward, a 1-barrel system would cover about 10% of our need. Hey, speak of the devil.
You're gonna have to get
Hey,
out
handsome.
there.
Come on in.
So I mean,
so fast forward.
and just before I forget,
Please.
what was this building before you guys took it over?
This building was
Because I
a
think
small
it's
arms
super
range. So the
interesting.
first time we came in, it was a blackout tomb. There were no windows, there were no doors. It's 12-inch thick, bulletproof walls. Because just to our left, actually, Matt, is where the Navy sailors would come in to shoot pistols, largely at the wall. So the wall that now holds art and our TV, as well as a fire escape door, used to be shot at pretty actively.
Yeah.
Are there still any bullets in the wall?
Here,
There-
I'll,
not that
I'll
we know
fetch
of.
some brews. You guys can hop in. So we're gonna bring in Nate's partner, and let you guys chat for a second. I'm gonna refill our glasses.
Great stuff.
Right,
Thanks,
so,
So Jared, what
Hi,
do you
Nate's
think about
partner.
that? Hey, yeah. So this is Jared,
Hey, Jared, I'm Aaron. How you doing?
the aforementioned mad scientist and creative mind behind the beer that we've been enjoying.
I guess I heard you were brewing as a underaged.
Whoa, no, not underage.
No,
Age 16.
allegedly.
Right, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Thank you.
There's no. Honestly, I worked in
Not
a
a
home.
lawyer.
I worked in a homebrew store up here not that long ago, and it's actually totally legal for anyone under the age of 21 to purchase brewing accessories, things like that. You just can't obviously try it legally.
Yeah, well, that's the nice catch-22. You can buy everything yourself, but just can't taste the finished product.
So Jared did not know what beer tasted like for 5 years after he
Yeah,
started brewing, just to be
absolutely
clear.
That's right. That's right. So he was just kind of filling us in kind of on the why Brunswick, and why you guys decided to start this. What on your angle when you guys met, what about Brunswick? What about this business plan really made you decide, as somebody that has experience in the brewing industry, what made you decide this was a great idea to sink your teeth into?
Yeah, I think a big part of it was that there wasn't anything exactly like this in the area. We had a brew pub in Brunswick, Lively's, and they were more focused on the kind of restaurant aspect of things. And so we really wanted to make a community space more oriented towards family-friendly, dog-friendly, people coming in, drinking a few beers. There's no rush to get in and get out. It's really a place for people to come in and hang out and enjoy themselves. No real pressure on to turn over your seat or anything.
Yeah.
The dog friendly makes sense now why you let Matt in for the podcast. That totally makes sense.
DAWGS.
Yeah. Makes complete sense. So
Our super fans are walking by.
you were brewing on
They're streaming us live. That's so meta.
so you were brewing on a much larger scale prior to this. While we've got you here, one thing I'm always interested in talking to brewers, especially you have a unique situation. Most of the brewers I talked to were home brewers and then moved up, and that's a much larger transition for them to move into this space. But going from such a large controlled space, what are some of the challenges in quality control at a smaller scale?
I think the big thing is yeast management. So we don't have the resources available to us that Shipyard might or Allagash might. We don't have a lab of any sorts.
Right.
There's been a new lab QC program at USM, so we do have some lab services available to us. But
It's the University of Southern Maine.
yes,
Portland. So a half hour away for full laboratory testing.
Yeah, but most of that stuff isn't available as readily as it might be there. So yeast cell counts, making
Thank
sure
you,
that
bartender.
any
My pleasure, sir.
bacteria hasn't gotten into our system
Oh, thanks.
it has to be done more from intuition than anything else. So we really keep to a strict practice of cleaning everything, making sure it's all sterile before we're using it.
That's interesting. And from my experience as a home brewer, one thing that I've experienced is even from the transition, sometimes in the winter I'll do 1 gallon, 2 gallon batches just because I don't feel like going outside and up here in Buffalo. But one thing I've noticed when I move to a smaller scale in my fermenters, there's more surface area, so I have to be very careful with how much yeast I actually put into this. Did you have any issues like that?
We are kid friendly, in case that wasn't audibly relevant.
Did you ever have any issues when you were doing some of the test batches and scaling into that 7-barrel system of kind of fine tuning how much yeast to use, things like that?
Not too much, actually. We got learned a pretty good system through Shipyard as with relation to how much yeast per amount of beer to put in, and I found that worked pretty well here. And it was essentially a weight per amount of beer, per barrel of beer. So
yep.
In terms of that, yeah, no, we were able to overcome that pretty easily. I think it's harder when you're going from a smaller batch at the homebrew guys. So 5-gallon batch is much harder to scale up yeast-wise and ingredients-wise than it is to go from, say, a 100-barrel batch to a 7-barrel batch.
Yep, that makes sense. I mean, I've only experienced between the 1 and 15-gallon mark, and there's a lot of difference in there. But I've heard when you're brewing commercially, there isn't as much of a difference. It just becomes maintaining your quality control. That is, from batch to batch, that becomes the hardest thing to achieve. So. That's interesting stuff, man. I love this insight that we get. So when did you guys end up getting together? So Nate kind of filled us in about the conversations he and his wife had about starting a brewery. How did you guys get together and meet?
I'm married now.
So a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, he's been my friend since high school. I knew Nate through Cutler campaign, right?
Formal work, yeah.
Yeah. So he got us in touch. His name's Adam Pontius, and
We call him Beans.
Beans is his real name.
That's my kid. My kid's nickname is Beans.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Must be the same guy.
Yeah, 2-year-old.
Yeah, I know.
2-year-old. Well,
Doesn't have a lot of.
Yeah, I mean,
2-year-old.
Certain aspects.
At heart.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he got us in touch, and he knew that both of us knew how to do a certain aspect of the brewing business. So I knew how to brew. Nate was really good at making connections and doing the paperwork and kind of the business side of things. So
My handwriting is meticulous.
much better than mine.
My handwriting is not meticulous, but my handwriting is meticulous relative to his.
Gotcha.
Depending on how many beers have been involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't need any to make my handwriting bad.
It's yeah. Not to dwell on that. Yeah.
Well, and
But yeah, so
I think we're going to jump ahead into a question. We'll circle back to the community stuff. But while we got you here as the brewer, I think this is a good opportunity to figure out, what decisions go into selecting your next style of beer, market trends, competition, consumer feedback, a small brewery like yours too. I know a couple of brewers, and when mistakes happen in a smaller brewery, it's very costly. So, what are the risks for you to fail with a style?
I would say
Epic smartphone save
Yes.
right now by Matt.
almost lost
That
some.
could have been a new whatever you're using.
So I would say we've been lucky enough that we haven't lost many batches. I think 2 as of yet.
Knocking on wood profusely at the moment.
So it's to date, we really thought in the beginning that we would kind of play to our market with our styles. So we kept it kind of an English traditional base, and then we kind of wanted to branch out. And at this point, we've been thinking a lot about doing on IPAs. You kind of have to go the hazier route.
Sure.
Love it. It's a crowd pleaser.
There's no resentment in his voice right now.
And then for the most part, people love new things, I think, especially in our area where we benefit with Portland being so close. They're doing so many neat things down there that we kind of get that a little bit of spillover interest. So we're really the world is our oyster type of thing. So we can really kind of branch out as we please, without too much repercussion or fear of not selling that beer. I mean, it might not sell as well as some others, but for the most part, we'll go through it.
Really cool thing over the last month, we've had a new pilot beer every single Friday. So, is it logistically possible to continue doing that? Yes. Is it, humane for this gentleman sitting right here? Probably not.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work to do it well. It's a ton of work.
Sure.
But it was an interesting experiment. So we called it Brewery. So,
I get what you did. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, so Amy Lord is our tasting room manager. I give her full creative credit for that.
Interesting.
So the idea was every Friday in February have a new beer to taste, and it was a way of spicing it up and sort of kicking off the season. But also, it was a good excuse to try a lot of things that have been overflowing in certain people's brains.
And just a good excuse to make yourselves work harder.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just juggle a bunch of.
Every morning, Jared asks us the question like, "Hey guys, how can you add more work onto my plate?" And
it's a lot of juggling for people.
We spend a few days thinking about it and then reporting back to him. So, no, seriously, the outcome of those, we sold out of every single pilot batch in less than 6 hours. The fastest was, I think, 4.5, 5 hours. And that's starting at noon. So we were done by dinner time, which was, we learned the downside is that we really need to make enough beer to last through dinner. And the upside is that people love new things. And I mean, this is not breaking news to anyone listening to this podcast. Craft beer is about trying new things. But the interesting thing we've learned is that, and we'll get into the details of the business, there's a lot of complexity in starting any business, especially a small brewery. We're doing the same amount of legal and tax and accounting and all that back of office, the not sexy part. That's the same amount of work as if we're making 10 times as much beer.
Right.
So in order to keep things spicy, we really have to remind ourselves that, and really have to focus on the short-term attention span for both ourselves and for our customers and our community. So February was a great example of, while we need to make a little bit more beer than we did in February to last the day, it can be just one shot in the arm sort of fun stuff. And that's the advantage we have. I mean, we're not at the scale Shipyard is. We're not at the scale Sam Adams is. We're not at the scale Anheuser-Busch is. We don't have to make 1 million gallons of something to make it profitable. In fact, we don't have to make any one batch profitable. We're not focused on the numbers of any one batch of beer. We have to pay our bills, and that's always a reality. But part of the appeal of why people come out to us is that they expect something new. And so we're not tracking the profitability of every beer. In fact, we actively don't. Because that's not the point. The point is, are people treating us as a go-to location? Are people coming out and finding a beer they can drink and enjoying their time here? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, we're doing something wrong and we'll change it.
I think one of the huge advantages to being small like we are is that we can have a lot of input from our regulars, and they get to say,
and irregulars.
Or irregulars. A lot of people come in and say, this is what we've been drinking around, and this is what I would really love to see in a beer, and we kind of get that input and feedback. We kind of have a pulse on the scene, if you will.
And as I mentioned earlier, I mean, Jared, we take it every week. Everybody, each one of us takes a shift behind the bar. So Jared is behind the bar today. So I mean, how many breweries do you walk into at our size and have the opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with one of the co-founders, but also the guy has the sole creative responsibility of coming up with the beer you're drinking? I mean, that's a huge opportunity for everybody, and including us, to make sure that reception is positive, and if it's not, understand why. It's not just as simple as did you like it or did you not. It's a matter of why did you like it, and how can we take those learnings and apply it to not just the beer, but also the experience of flight deck. Yeah,
and not to hog all the questions here, and I'll let Matt get the follow-up question after this, but yeah, I don't even know where he went. He's out there.
He's off the show.
Yeah. He's off the show.
honestly, it might be better that way. So
good thing he can't hear you, huh? My phones are a beautiful thing.
We've been around each other long enough.
One thing I'd like to talk to all brewers that I talk to about. It's an interesting conversation whenever I hear these guys. And up here we have a local Beer Geeks Facebook page where all the brewers are involved there. And it's interesting to me in the day of social media where there's so many people that have so many opinions out there. How do you guys, as people that put your passion into it, this is your livelihood, how do you deal with both the highs and lows of that, of people, saying, hey, you guys are doing great stuff, but also the people that are out there that are just haters on Untapped, which people go to those sites to verify if beer is good or not? How do you deal with the people that are, just giving you bad reviews or something like that? How as business owners and the face of the business is that to deal with?
Well, there's let me just preface this by saying, no matter what we say next, we will solicit hateful comments and reviews, okay? And that's probably the whole point here, is that there's two fronts. One is that sometimes people are leaving honest feedback. And that is necessary, and that is highly valuable. What is great about a business our size in a community this tight-knit is that if something is not to someone's standards, odds are, if they live here in the community, they're going to tell us to our face, because they want us to know how they feel, and they know that we're going to take that to heart, and we're going to do our best to rectify that moving forward. It's just the way that the community is, and that's the way any local community is. I want to believe. For folks who aren't a part of the community, and usually the hypercritical reviews, which we haven't had too many, frankly, but sometimes there's somebody who wrote a review. I forget on what platform, but the review was something like, "I don't like dark beers."
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that's like 1 of 6.
Right.
Got it. I happen to agree with you, but that doesn't make a difference, right? So it's, I got to take it with a grain of salt. And I think part of the interesting evolution of the internet is that folks are not taking anyone. I don't like beers is not. I don't like dark beers is not a helpful review when you're deciding about what brewery to go to.
Yeah.
Unless our name was Flight Deck Brewing Dark Beers LLC.
Right.
In which case, all right, I might not go to Flight Deck Brewing if I don't like dark beers. But you got to take it with the whole picture. And the cool thing about the internet is that it is very transparent, and so it holds us accountable. And we're proud of the fact that we've got a great reputation in the community. We're proud of the fact that we can repeatedly deliver a great experience. And I think that part of that is that we know we have to take ourselves seriously. I mean, if you zoom in, I think the webcam is full HD. So if you zoom in, if you pinch and zoom on Jared's eyes, you will see some bags, because we all take our job very seriously. I mean, Jared works incredible hours to deliver a quality product. Yeah. And we do our best to put our best foot forward in every other regard. And so it holds the industry accountable overall.
No, Richards.
Yeah. So that transparency and that web presence holds every brewery accountable. And so the great news is that the odds of a brewery producing bad beer and succeeding is near zero. Yeah. And so it's not just about, and the other thing I'll throw in there is that it's not just about the beer. The reality is people expect an experience, and beer is a huge aspect of that experience. It's not the sole experience. Maine magazine, Down East magazine named us the best tasting room in Maine last year. They created that category specifically because the experience is not just about the beer; it's about where you drink it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I just get
Jared's experience is early mornings and late nights, so he's exiting the conversation.
Yeah, well, tell him I appreciate his insight when he clocks in
for a beer.
But that conversation is something that really gets me super frustrated. Like I said, I was in one of those Facebook groups, and I would see up here we have a really nice brewery that I like, and they release a new beer all the time. It's a new series that they're doing, and one guy comes in and he rates it on Facebook. He gets on and he's like, I was very disappointed. And I was like, what about it? Like, can you elaborate on why you're disappointed? I didn't like it as much as the first one. And I was like, well, it's a totally different beer. They're not even the same beer style. So can you go a little further?
So I'll offer something to the audience of this podcast. Yeah. It clearly is a more sophisticated beer enjoyer and or lover of Flight Deck. Thank you. Shout out. Honestly, from a personal level, I try to ignore online reviews as best I can, because I know that if it's meaningful, they will say it to my face. Yeah, and I have to. I mean, there's only so many things you can read on the internet. So at some point, you have to draw a line. Yeah. So I'd say if you have feedback, and I say this with total honesty, I will look dead into the webcam. If you have feedback, good or bad, say it to my face, and that's not very welcoming. But no, the honest truth is, and it's not only because A, we appreciate it, but B, it's most likely to be affected by. I'm going to hear it. I'm going to accept it. You're going to see my reaction. I'm going to ask you some questions to understand why, and then I'm going to go do something about it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, feedback is wanted to be given in the first place because you want to see it change, or you want to see something continue. And either way, if you don't tell us that beer is the freaking best beer you've drank of ours, for all you know, we can take it off tap next week because we don't get enough feedback about it, right? So we need to hear both the good and the bad to understand how we can deliver a better experience.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like I'm
mad. The beer industry is we can produce a new beer in 2 weeks.
I'm mad I didn't give Avery enough feedback on their saison because now they pulled it on me. You know, perfect example.
I almost said this earlier, but I do think that is solely your responsibility.
Yeah, I feel solely responsible for it. I'm having trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
But as far as feedback goes too, I would love to give you some feedback as soon as Matt ships me. Some of your guys' beers.
I've been waiting for these awesome cans they have coming.
Just don't write us a negative review like, I don't like your beer because I've never had it before.
Right.
I'm gonna get on Facebook again and
this beer is dark.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I do like dark beers though, but
sorry, dark. Yeah, I was gonna say dark beer lovers are gonna hate on.
Yeah.
For the record, we have an excellent rye porter and an excellent.
I love rye.
We actually had one of our pilot beers was a milk stout. That kicked the fastest. So we had a New England style IPA that we expected that to be the gangbuster of the four. Yeah. And the milk stout kicked 2 hours before the New England style IPA.
Interesting.
It's an underrated style.
He's a stout lover.
You're a stout lover?
We go back and forth a lot, yeah.
Well, you've got about 6 months to move back to Maine before you start producing that again. So,
as long as if the cost of living drops to another like 40%, then I'll consider.
Let's talk about this in the next segment.
So let's get into that because we do have to wrap up here. And I know that's something you're passionate about, so I'd love to hear your opinions on it because I am looking at different states and stuff like that right now. And Portland keeps coming up. Brunswick, I'm my heart is in Brunswick. But I love the community, but it's hard to get pulled back there. So tell me.
Well, I mean, let's touch on it. Did you explain your relationship with, or what you do for not brewing?
I don't remember. Short version: live and work in Maine, statewide private sector organization that markets Maine as a career destination. So our job is to convince. So anybody watching this podcast probably or listening to this podcast understands and has heard a message about Maine being vacation land. Maine is a tourism destination. We're a state of 1.3 million people, just under that. And we have 36 million people visit our state every year. So clearly people know it's a great place to visit. Why do they visit us? The quality of life is great. The quality of place is great. Duh. We don't have to convince anybody of that. They know it's a great place to visit. Okay, got it. So why don't people understand it's a great place to live? Why don't people understand it's a great place to work?
Right.
Because the reality is there's some world-class employers. There's multiple multi-billion-dollar companies now in Maine. LL Bean is the thing that people always thinks of. Yes, it's a behemoth of commerce.
Sure.
But there's also WEX, a payment solution company. There's also IDEX, veterinary testing laboratory equipment, multi-dollar company.
Yeah.
So there's some incredible employers in the state. Never mind the startup community, which Portland has really totally evolved over the last decade to be one of the best communities to start a new company in. And I say community of Portland. Brunswick counts as that community.
Right.
Largely,
what, 25 minutes,
ecosystem.
30 minutes north max?
Max.
Yeah.
And so you've got all that sort of reality, but then you've also got the aspect of all right, boil it down. What is Maine's competitive advantage in the marketplace in convincing talent to be here? And which is what you want to hear, right? So our competitive advantage is quality of life, bar none. It is world-class, and it doesn't matter how much money you make in upstate New York. It does not matter how much money you make in Boston, New York, California, anywhere else. You cannot buy the quality of life we have. You cannot buy access to the beaches, access to the ski mountains, access to the fields, access to the lakes, access to the ocean, all of that in the same day. You cannot buy the reality that a conference call, literally, I'm not making this up. I actually had a business conference call with this guy. He didn't know it at the time because I was embarrassed to tell him. I was on a chairlift.
Yes, you were. That is amazing.
And you didn't know it.
That is awesome.
You didn't know it.
I love that.
So, and guess what? I was also working. I wasn't taking the day off. I was there on a marketing trip. So
where were you on the chairlift?
Sunday River.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
So you can't buy that. It doesn't matter how much money you make anywhere else. You can't buy that quality of life. So that's what so Live and Work in Maine is an organization that puts that foot forward. So our purpose, our mission is to build a vehicle, a marketing message to enable the employer community to demonstrate that it's not just a great career that organization can offer. It's a great career that's coupled with a great quality of life, and it's coupled with a great living scenario. And so I gave the example of Harpswell. I mean, the reason we were supposed to be in Harpswell for 4 months, we ended up being there for 3.5, 4 years. We just bought in the town over in Bath for a similar quality of life. I mean, in Harpswell, Maine, I lived on an island. You drive there, there's a bridge, but it was an island on the water. My cost of housing for a house was less than rent in downtown Portland for something half the size. My internet speed was double at half the price. I'm not joking. I'm not making this up. Double for half the price than in downtown Portland. And so I didn't want the metropolitan quality of life. My fiance and I wanted a garden and access to the water and all these things, which is why we chose Harpswell. We could choose to do that because Maine has that to offer. And so to us, I mean, there are a lot of people that could, and consciously, you just alluded to this, choose to go elsewhere or stay elsewhere because they think it's all about the income you have. And that's, don't mean to diminish that aspect of your equation, because clearly your income is a large part of how you live.
Sure.
But we try to put forward a message that says, look, don't overlook your income, but consider what you're investing in, right? So how much of your income is currently going to a quality of life that you may not enjoy as much as the quality of life in Maine? And consider what it would mean to have your overall income potentially, by the way, this is not an assumption you should make, but potentially for the same career drop, 5 or 10% to come to Maine versus downtown Boston. But then suddenly have either for the same cost of living, something that's 10 times bigger. You can get a farmhouse with 10 acres for the same cost of a small apartment in Boston. Or you could have something similar in downtown Portland for a lot less money. And again, have a quality of life, own a car, drive to the buy a season pass for what your parking garage costs 1 month in Boston.
And live down the road from Flight Deck.
Right? So,
and see Matt.
And see Matt. I mean, look at this guy.
I'm like half a mile away.
He's got a great hat.
Yeah.
So we put that message out there, not to say that, hey, everybody in the world should like this. We recognize that's not right for everybody.
Sure.
Some people love the hubbub of downtown Boston. And we are not going to try to convince those people that Maine has that to offer, because we don't.
Right.
But we need to put the message out there that we do have a great quality of life. And if you want what we have to offer, know that there are some incredible employers that are ready to hire you.
Including breweries.
Right.
Including breweries, including Flight Deck for the summer.
It's a growing industry. Yeah.
That's right.
So did you guys get into the kind of the business side of this stuff? Have we touched on that yet?
No, because he hasn't committed to moving back to Maine yet. So.
Oh, yeah. So back to the beer part of that conversation. And full disclosure, I do a lot of work with Nate in our real jobs. I guess this is a real job too, but I have a real job other than this.
Wait, is this a job?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to ask.
We just all take a moment and pause,
Travis.
but what a freaking awesome opportunity this is to call this work.
Yeah,
I mean, we are incredibly blessed.
What are you asking, Travis?
I'm going to have to ask Travis if you actually have a real job at Pat.
I have a real job. Yeah, well, I mean that too, but
he doesn't.
Yeah,
I know.
So, hey, I'm trying to make a living.
All right, let's be serious.
He told me when I was on the chairlift. He does not do anything.
Yeah.
He
I know.
beer. Invoices
all
for
day.
it.
All
He's
day.
just shipping beer all day, trading beer on Instagram.
you got an invoice the other day that said beer.
And then it was straight through, and then I added,
Right. Sorry.
whatever I did. But back to what breweries do for a community. I think this has been a great draw here. I think the craft beer scene in general, Maine, is a great draw for business. So from your perspective of kind of working day to day and driving business and keeping people here and working with employers and all that, how has the brewery scene really kind of affected that whole thing? Does it create a physical draw to other businesses and help improve that? Does it help a sense of community? Does it provide jobs? Does it do all of those things? I'm kind of leading you. Yes, yeah, but
great softball, Matt.
Right, yeah.
Now back to you, Nate.
Yeah.
Yes, it does all of those things. And I think, again, anybody listening to this podcast or that sought this podcast out probably understands that already. I think the cool thing is what the audience of this podcast can do to amplify that. And so what we've seen over the last 5 years is an explosion of tasting room business models, in large part driven by, you often hear like, oh, tasting rooms made possible by changes in state law. That's true. But what's really made that possible is that people have embraced that model over the traditional quote unquote dive bar business model,
Right.
which you put dive in the name for a reason, and not to diminish some traditional dive bars that some of us still enjoy going to once in a while, but it's a different. Just because they serve beer doesn't make them the same type of business. We serve beer, and on the weekends, to be honest, on a regular basis, my guess is 20 to 30% of the folks that are here are not drinking our beer. They're not drinking alcohol. They're either kids or they're adults that have accompanied a larger group that are using our space to gather. They're using our space to either socialize, to celebrate a birthday or retirement party, or a work anniversary, what have you. And so it's not about just the beer. The beer facilitates and enables the business model of having the space available. But the identity of Flight Deck is rooted in beer, but it's not exclusive to beer. And I think a lot of breweries can claim the same. And so as we look to grow, and my guess is maybe we can negotiate a guest appearance on a future podcast to showcase our new cans, which are not in yet. But as we look to start distributing our beer, because year one we anticipated, I'll just be brief about that. So we talked about sort of why we got started. We thought we were going to be this sort of brewery that had to work hard to get our beer out to other restaurants and bars. So we planned on 50% of our beer we make going out in kegs and 50% going over the bar. In year one, we had so many people show up. We had 98% of our beer go over the bar. And 2%, it was all reactive sales. It was all people, restaurants and folks that we got to know in the community that love us and support us and went out of their way to have our kegs, even after we told them that we would probably screw it up somehow. Like, just so you know, we can't promise you we're going to have this beer next week because we don't know how to keep up.
Right.
And by the way, if we don't invoice you properly, it's because we're still learning how to use QuickBooks.
Yep.
And they said, no problem, we'll worry it out. So we're very thankful to those folks that helped us get 2% of our beer out there. So finally, we're getting to the point of distribution. So we're having some great cans designed by a great person who works for a mediocre firm called Petra.
Yeah, seriously.
And, did I say that live?
I mean, this isn't live.
They'll edit that.
No,
it's fine.
Yeah,
they'll edit it.
Travis doesn't listen anyway.
Thank you, producer. No, the can designs are freaking phenomenal. So we have 4 beers that are going to start in distribution.
Stay tuned on Loveof.beer social media. As soon as we get permission, we'll start pumping that hard. So
they are shipping from the manufacturer today. Yeah. So they'll be in hand soon. So the good news is that as we grow, just to tie this back, as we're distributing our cans out, what we've sort of realized is that the strength of any business is in the reputation, is in the expectation of whoever purchases those cans that it's going to be a quality product and a quality experience. And the cool thing that we didn't engineer at all, though I wish we had been smart enough to think of this, is that we're now distributing cans at a point where people understand and appreciate the brand we have. And the brand is not just, hey, these guys put in just the right amount of mosaic into the dry hop of that IPA. The brand is, it's a freaking awesome beer.
Right.
But also, when I go to Flight Deck, I'm going to be welcomed as soon as I come in.
Right.
I'm going to have a great lineup of beers to choose from. The people at the bar, the other locals, the other folks around are warming and expecting a good community. And if I'm by the way, if I'm a Navy sailor, there are going to be some other Navy sailors in town. I'm just looking down, and we've got a nice crew of. So we're just down the road from Bath Iron Works, which builds ships for the U.S. Navy. And so here on the landing, the former base, there's still some housing stock that the Navy utilizes to house sailors as the crew for these ships as they come in. So we just had 2 ships, the Hudner and the Mansour, one of which is the new Zumwalt class, which looks like the spaceship on the water. It's pretty wild. And the older Arleigh Burke class destroyer, which they're still building, which is a solid workhorse. And so crews for 2 of those ships both arrived, and oh boy, can Navy sailors drink beer.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, it's not that they come in to drink a lot of beer for the sake of drinking a lot of beer. Right. They're coming in to socialize, to hang out, to be a part of the community. Yeah. And let me tell you, they can drink 10 beers for every one I can. And that's the point, right? The point is not to have 10 beers. The point is to come and have a good time.
And enjoy, And I think
there's no better
gentleman just walked by, one of the guys walked by, Navy sailor, and I know for a fact he doesn't drink.
Yeah.
And he's been here for hours.
Hanging out.
There's no better time for Matt than a bar full of seamen.
I
had to do it.
Yeah. So, I think what you're kind of coming back to there is it's cool to see this shift that craft brewing is bringing back to bringing the community back to the pub, right? Like back in colonial America, the pub was the place where politics happened. It was a place where societal meetings happened. It was the gathering space.
Sure.
And I think we're turning that sense of community. Like you said, there's people here who aren't drinking. They're just hanging out, kicking around. It's a really cool shift in the way we operate in society. And it's awful nice to have you guys here in Brunswick.
For me as a Brunswick kid, I went to high school in Brunswick. I'm not from there originally, but I moved there in high school and went to high school there. I started a business with Matt there years ago in the fort. So I have tons of ties to Brunswick. And one of my biggest frustrations of the Brunswick area, and I've talked to Steve at the chamber and people at the chamber, was the lack of that type of atmosphere, not just a brewery, but the atmosphere that you guys are describing. And there is a bunch of bars in the area, and some of them have different atmospheres, but I would try to find a place to go with friends or to bring a girl on a date or just to go somewhere after work just to clear my head. Right. And you would end up at a dive bar or something. Not that there's anything, I had plenty of fun at the dive bars in Brunswick throughout my 20s, but it would have been nice to have a place to, meet my payroll guy for beer after work, to go to a chamber after hours and drink beer with other professionals, to get involved in the community and say, hey, let's go meet at this place. So I appreciate that you guys have opened there for all those levels.
I have two quick thoughts on that. One is that your words would carry more weight if you were committed to moving back to Maine.
Yeah, that's right.
And the second is just a funny story that last summer, one of the first warm days we had, we broke out the cornhole and we had a good time out on the patio.
That was like in August, right? Sometime in August.
Yeah, I laughed it up. No, it was May or April.
Yeah.
Warm
being 65
March,
degrees.
April.
Yeah.
March, April.
Sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, we broke out the cornhole, and the first, so I was going out and making the rounds, and thanks everybody for coming out. We're a new business and all this stuff. And the first two couples that I started chatting with, fast forward because I'm not good at telling jokes. They were both on a first date.
Really?
And the first couple, I did not know what to do. I froze. I was like, "Great, well, thanks for coming. See ya." Because I didn't know what I wanted to. I didn't want to be responsible for any of that, good or bad. And the second couple, I just didn't believe that I wasn't being set up by somebody. So, but I will say we've had, to your point about sort of meeting folks, whether it's dating or honestly, like this past Sunday, we had a great fundraiser for the Brunswick Topsom Land Trust. Raised a good amount of money, and these cups are, as I mentioned earlier, co-branded with the Land Trust. We sold these to benefit them. And that event brought together the board of Land Trust and a lot of supporters of the Land Trust that had never run into each other because there are a lot of folks that ski, there are a lot of folks that run, a lot of folks that bike, a lot of folks that hike.
Sure.
Rarely do you get all of those supporters in one place because, funny enough, beer unites people.
Amen. You didn't have to tell me that.
I'm gonna hop
Except for on the internet.
Yeah. No, it really does, and I think it's a cool kind of spin-off of what you do during the day to have this here, and we appreciate it, Nate.
Yeah,
I appreciate you.
Well, and I think that's a good place. A nice we ended on a nice high note.
Even though it's IPA.
Yeah, that's right. Positivity, man.
Yeah,
We're
I like this
ending
positivity.
on positive. Yeah.
So-
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, before we wrap up, Nate, where can we find more information about Flight Deck? I don't know if you're on Instagram or Twitter or the businesses.
All that.
Give me all your contact information.
All the handles.
Security.
Hashtag all the handles. Flightdeckbrewing.com is the best place to go. I will say Facebook is, we keep Facebook up to date with a robust event calendar. So we've got public events almost every day of the week, every week. We've realized this is something we backed into. We realized that having an excuse for folks to get together is something that we can offer. And so whether it's an open mic night, live music, which is happening this Friday, for example, every Thursday we have trivia night, which is good trivia, by the way. And I know it's good trivia because I answer about 20% of the questions correctly. And I'm not good at trivia.
Packed. I'm talking to the walls packed for trivia.
In fact, we had an issue of too many. It was too packed for too many weeks, and people stopped being inclined to come. So we added seating to spread it out because teams were cheating off another because you just couldn't help but not hear. And we spread it out. And we're excited to open the doors, so we have the big patio. So Facebook, as they change their algorithms, as we're all hearing about in the brand world, Facebook is now going to be more relevant for people. So lucky us, we get to see more from Matt, which I can't wait for personally. It's going to be
I love it.
awesome. So while we're seeing more of Matt, you might see less of flight deck unless you select them to appear first in your feed, which we encourage you to do. So just from a business angle, something we're embracing, and the industry is something to re-embrace now, is our websites, which we're starting to fade. And it'll be interesting to see how the change in Facebook's algorithm reboosts, if you will, the necessity of having not only just a website, but a good website that is maintained regularly. That's something we've sort of always tried to do because we honestly didn't know what was going to stick. Yeah. And so we're fortunate that we have a good system in place. So we're going to continue to update our website with all the events we've got going on. Everything, the one thing we don't put on the internet, which if anybody has a great idea, send us an email, info@flightdeckbrewing.com. I may regret putting that out there, but I did. A good system for putting the current beers we have on tap out. So we have beer releases out, and we update Facebook posts when they're kicked. The reality is to update a website with beer availability is a huge time suck. Yeah. And so if there is a way, if there is a flow meter that we put on a keg, this has got to exist, right? But if it doesn't, this is my verbal patent, okay? So a flow meter on a keg. So when the keg is empty, flow meter pings the thing, the thing, and the website updates to out.
This is 100% doable, just so you know. We'll talk later.
They have
okay, if somebody else does this, I just want 1%. 1% is all I want. That's all I want. So anyway, so if anybody has a good idea, so that's the one thing we don't put out there. But otherwise, it's really about we want to create it. And honestly, Jared works incredible hours to ensure that we've got always a diverse lineup of beer. We never have 2 beers on tap. We've always got 6, if not 8, if not 10. And so to do that on a regular basis at our size is an incredible feat. And so that is part of what makes the experience here so good. That's part of what the challenge of scaling is going to be, is figuring out how to put out a meaningful number of cans of any one type. Right. Because, we got to pay for the cans. The cans are not cheap. And the canning line that we have behind us is not cheap. Right. So we got to find a way to move enough of one brand to make that worthwhile. And so we're in it. We're feeling up for the challenge. And honestly, we're so bored. Right?
Yeah. Well, honestly, Matt can help you out
beer, Jeez.
Matt can help you guys out by shipping at least a few cans my way.
I'll send him a 3-pack.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 2.5. I'm gonna poke a hole on all of them though.
Shotgun each one before we go.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
You know what? We'll send you a small package, but that's right. The larger selection will have to wait until you move back.
That's right. Well, I'll be home this summer, so I do look forward to checking it out. My buddy's getting married at Peaks this summer, so I'll be home for that and come check you guys out and get to shake your hand. And
so we have a slogan: visit for a week, stay for a lifetime.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm not making this up.
I love it.
You're digging a deeper hole for yourself.
I love it so much.
It's going to be fun.
We're going to guilt trip you until I
have a Jewish mother. There's no.
You must have some info on, like social security number.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay, dude, I got it all.
At least.
No, I don't know anything.
No.
Yeah. So Matt, what's new with Loveof.beer? You got anything new happening there?
Yeah. So we just finalized our plans for Brew and Chew, which is going to be happening at Frontier.
I'm assuming that has something to do with food.
It does. It is a food pairing, 4-course food pairing and beer tasting. This one will be at Frontier Cafe here in Brunswick. Their chef is putting together some stuff. We are working out the beers that are going to be there right now.
Nice side glance.
Yeah. May 3rd is the finalized date on that. We just finished that today. For those of you guys who don't know, Frontier, if you ever visit Brunswick, is one of the coolest spots here in town. Yeah, super fun guys. They have a theater. They do all kinds of art installations. It just expanded, almost doubled their space. So really, really good stuff there. I am working on a very tentative plan for a beer brunch that will be happening on a Sunday with Dan Zarin, who is the writer for the brunch column in Ballard. So stay tuned for that. That should be super fun. He's a really fun guy.
I just say thank you in advance for all those tickets.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Just invoice later.
Dan, I met at the Mast Landing beer dinner at Falmouth Country Club. Kind of by chance, we got seated at the same table. Really fun guy. His, I believe wife was there as well. Super fun. So working on some fun stuff for that, and just starting the early stuff for Feastival. I won't share anything about that yet, but I will say that shenanigans will be had.
Nice. Where can
This
we?
involved you falling off a toy truck into the mud.
You did see that.
It was a teaser on Instagram.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I just tease the teaser?
You teased it. Well, no, it is out there. It's on Instagram. The full video will be coming
Sorry,
soon.
I revealed the teaser.
You did. It's in the public. The full video will be coming soon. We're doing some promotional stuff. I'll give you a few hints just to wet the palate, if you will.
Quench the thirst.
That's right.
For
Full
information.
full weekend camping. Kind of a different twist on beer festivals. We're sick of the same old stuff. I think the breweries are kind of sick of the same old stuff. So adding some entertainment. This will be at a motocross facility. Huge, over 600 acres. Motocross shows. Downhill power wheel racing, slip and slides, food competitions, beer competitions. I will say no more.
Nice. So where can people that are interested in finding out more as it comes out, where can we find that stuff from you guys?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook. Loveof.beer should be able to find us. Instagram under the same handle. We are on YouTube, which is where these videos are. We do have a website that is loveof.beer. There's no .com after that. People seem to forget
You bought
that.
a dot beer.
.beer. I also own Bissell.beer.
No, you
just
don't.
for the record.
Have you offered it to them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, they know. It's redirecting their website.
Oh.
Yeah. We told them. I just did it because I didn't want anybody
I
else
was going to
to
stop giving you free beer if you had sold it to them.
No. We could get flight deck beer too. But we'll talk.
Excuse me for a second. I have to go.
But yeah, Loveof.beer. Look us up on social. We do have a newsletter sign up. I promise I won't spam you. I only send out useful stuff. But we are ramping up heavily. So please come check us out. Sign up. Stay tuned. We got some really, really fun events coming this year.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah. Last pitch. Email list. So for anybody out there that wants to support their local brewery, I just hearing in the industry, email lists are increasingly really important. So if you want to show your support, the best thing you can do is sign up for an email list and acknowledge. So when I'll just start for this. A lot of the breweries in Maine put a little nugget in their emails about feedback, or they're asking a question. They don't really want support. Yeah, I can tell you it means a lot when we send information out and we get something back. So this goes back to the feedback thing. So join your local brewery email list, and if they throw something out there and it sounds really confident, just know that sending back affirmation that what they say is awesome means a lot. And if it isn't awesome, you should tell them that. Hold them accountable. So keep that conversation going. It's not a one-way street.
Yeah.
It's got to be a community effort.
Amen.
Absolutely. And speaking of community effort, our community, you can find us at Beer Talk Live on Facebook. You can find us at the Beer Talk Live pod on both Twitter and Instagram. We're over there. We do a lot on Instagram, so come join us there. Get involved in our community there. Let us know if there's shows that you want to see, people you want to see on, things like that. Matt, what do you got?
One more note. We are almost done rebuilding the Loveof.beer website, and all of our pods will be available for both play and also to link through to any platform of your choosing. And the videos will all be available right there on the website as well. So if you want to make it easy for yourself, come check it out, and we can get you where you need to go.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, I appreciate that. And you can always watch us live, join the conversation. There is a conversation bar on YouTube where you can get involved, ask questions. We would love to get some more of that happening. You can also find us on Podbean, Stitcher Radio, and also you can find us on iTunes. So if you're on any of those networks, go ahead and give us the subscribe, give us that nice 5-star review. That helps a lot too. And give us any feedback. If you think if you think we suck, think it takes too long, any of that, let us know.
Yeah, tell us.
And just like the beer scene, we want to get better and deliver our fans and customers what they are looking for. So you can find us on all those. And outside of that, guys, I appreciate the conversation. Our first in brewery live show, so that was pretty cool. And any last thoughts you guys want to say before we wrap up?
No, I would say thanks for sticking with us. This one was kind of chaotic. We wanted to give you the real brewery feel. This is what it's like in a small brewery, and it's chaotic and super fun, and you meet all these great people. And I had a blast. Thanks for
awesome.
Thank you guys. This is great.
Here.
And I can't wait to see where this goes, because I think featuring it'd be great to have sort of this chaotic experience in other breweries, and to see that, the word chaos is a positive thing around here, and that, when your father walks by and he has to hop in on the podcast, it's also a representation of what the brewery is all about.
That's right. That's
absolutely. Right. Well, hey guys, thanks a lot for listening, and go back and enjoy the previous episodes. We had some great guests so far, and look forward to some great guests coming up in the next few episodes. So thanks very much, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.